She's the founder and executive director of the ERA Education Project, a nonprofit initiative to raise the awareness about the Equal Rights Amendment. She's a recipient of the 2011 Women of Courage Award from the National Women's Political Caucus for demonstrating courage, taking a stand to further civil rights and exemplify women's leadership. In May, Women's E-News named her 21st leader for the 21st century. We are so pleased she could be here today. Please tell us about your journey, Kamala Lopez.
Wow, you guys, this is so exciting. I want to thank the Women's Legacy Fund and the wonderful San Luis Obispo community for welcoming me here today. I have a very long and very fond relationship with San Luis Obispo because my very first supporter and donor is Virginia Bass, and she's sitting right here today. She's lived here for many years, and I always come and stay with her. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Virginia, so I'm very grateful. But aside from that, this visit to SLO is extra special for me, not only because this full house is a testament to the great work being done by this community and this Women's Legacy Fund, but our presence here today reinforces the fact that we must support it. And also, because these are very special times we're living in. These are historic times. And our responsibility at this moment is great. Speaking about one's civic responsibility may be out of fashion, but I think it's time to bring it back into style. Many of us with the privilege to be here in this room today feel a heavy burden imposed by the tenor of the times, an instinct and a desire to act in defense of ideals and institutions that we hold dear. Yet most of us are unsure what, if anything, we could actually do and what effect it could possibly have. Well, I'm standing here today precisely because I felt that way 10 years ago. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about my journey here. Maybe it will resonate with you and with what you're feeling about the treatment of women and girls in America. Maybe you will decide that you too want to join me in my mission. While I've always been active on issues that matter to me, and I've tried to fight back against injustice wherever possible, it wasn't until about a decade ago that something stuck in my craw so firmly and so painfully that I couldn't ignore it or cough it out. Over the course of working on a historical film about our first U.S. Congresswoman, Jeannette Rankin, a Republican from the state of Montana, I discovered that women in the United States had yet to be given full civil and human rights under the law. For those of you who don't believe me, I assure you it's true. Women in the United States still do not have equal rights under the law. And while 96% of Americans think that women should have equal rights, 80% of us think that we already do. I assumed that this must not matter anymore for some reason, that there must be some other laws that had been developed over the centuries that rectified this. Given the rhetoric of our national persona, it seemed completely reasonable to think that the status of women as chattel had been addressed, dealt with, and was relegated to the dustbin of history by now. But from that moment forward, I began looking into how our various social systems treat women through the lens of our most pressing issues: the gender pay gap, reproductive rights, health care, pregnancy discrimination, rape and sexual assault, domestic violence, homelessness, etc., etc. I wanted to look at whether the laws presently in place we're adequately providing women with equitable and just treatment at the end of the day? Well, I'm here to tell you what you already know, what most women already know. The shocking reality is that not only are the laws failing to protect women or provide them with substantive equality on the ground, but the entire interlocking puzzle of our systems supports, reinforces, and normalizes gender-based discrimination while simultaneously hiding the massive profits being made off the backs of those same women who are being discriminated against. Now, that's quite a card trick. I mean, if you were on 42nd Street in New York City, you'd get arrested for that kind of sleight of hand, no matter how elegant. I realize that saying that discrimination against women is a socially sanctioned, encouraged, and rewarded activity is a pretty heavy charge to level at our country. But were it not so, how could 39% of Latinas in Los Angeles County be living in poverty while working themselves to the bone every day? How could an inexplicable wage gap persist despite statistical somersaults from those who would deny it? How could 1 in 5 American children go to bed hungry? And how could the richest nation that has ever lived on the face of this earth have a growing number of women and children on the streets? This is not an accident, and this is not our fault. Without the Equal Rights Amendment to the United States Constitution, which would enshrine full equality for women into our foundational legal document, women find themselves with no solid ground beneath them when they seek justice for gender-based discrimination. This defangs any possible enforcement of our rights and gives a tacit wink and a nod to rapists, wife-beaters, unscrupulous lenders, discriminatory bosses, unethical pharmaceutical companies, and a whole host of other unpleasant characters, and they get a free pass to do with us as they please. If there were teeth to our laws, would 3 women die every day at the hands of their intimate partners? Would students on our campuses be forced to protest an unsafe world of higher education for girls? These crimes go unpunished. They go tolerated, accepted. Victims of domestic violence find that a restraining order is not legally enforceable. More on that in my film. I won't take your time now. Having a rapist prosecuted and DNA evidence tested is a pipe dream. And that routinely being paid between 22 and 56% less money for the same work is par for the course. Just keep your mouth shut. Put up with it. Things could be worse. This is the world that we are living in. Many of you in this room are well educated on the issues of homelessness and domestic violence, of gendered poverty and cultural biases, of sexual assault and pregnancy discrimination. But what I would like you to look at is how these varied issues form a matrix of prejudice, supported by various social systems, economic, educational, governmental, judicial, cultural. And this matrix of discrimination is perpetuated by the culture, internalized by the victims, and generally accepted as normal. I am not sure what it was about that, the fact that we did not have these basic protections that really put my dander up. Part of it was the deep disrespect I felt was being shown to women. Another part was a burning embarrassment and shame of not knowing something so important to my ability to survive and thrive in life. But the worst part was feeling like I had been duped, sold a bill of goods, lied to. There was no escaping it. I had to do something about it. I was convinced, and I still am, that the only reason that this remains in place the way it is because of a blinding ignorance across the American public. This, I believe, is a simple fix. Being an actor and a filmmaker, I am very aware of the power of the arts to connect with people and educate through entertainment. In fact, it had been a historical reenactress at the Smithsonian Institution who had first sparked this fire in me. We were in Washington, D.C. showing our film, A Single Woman, at the Smithsonian. And I was walking across the lobby and I saw a woman dressed as a suffragist. She approached me and with strong intention, she looked me in the eye and she said, "I am Alice Paul and I am back to haunt you because you've done nothing to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment on a federal level." And although I knew that information on a theoretical level, on an academic level, the power of her words coupled with the visuals of her artistry was truly transformational for me. I understood this now on a visceral level, not just in my mind, and my entire being rose up against the idea that this could be true. I decided to start out making PSAs to raise awareness. I made many of them, and they were good, and Virginia paid for some of them, but people didn't see how they were going to have impact. So it was difficult to get the kind of funding I needed for more of them. You can see the early work we did, videos and FAQs on a website my husband built called the ERA Education Project, eraeducationproject.com. We piloted a program at Santa Monica Community College and Lenox Middle School, collaborating with an excellent gender studies professor, Melanie Klein, to train the students to research, interview, and develop social media strategy and curriculum to educate the public on the ERA. And then those same students taught their own curriculum to the middle school students in Lenox. You can see more about this program at erauniversity.com. But all of these initial steps, while effective in content, failed in scope and scale. This led me to develop the idea for the documentary feature film that would be a comprehensive look at the state of American women today. This would be something that we could use to make our case to the American government, to educate our youth, to give voice to the voiceless. This was something that could have legs. Well, 9 years later, I stand here before you having completed Equal Means Equal, which went on to become a New York Times Critics' Pick, win Best U.S. Documentary from Michael Moore's Film Festival. Over the course of the years of filming, I heard countless stories from over 100 women from across the spectrum. Our initial cut was 7.5 hours long. Each topic merited its own in-depth expose. Ultimately, however, the goal of Equal Means Equal was to show the way in which our systems work hand in glove to keep women in their place and clearly illustrate these connections. I cannot lie, making this documentary has been a very painful journey because much of what I saw and heard is precisely what we are avoiding trying to see and hear. But the level of cognitive dissonance in our society is reaching a breaking point. Cognitive dissonance is essentially holding two conflicting ideas as true simultaneously, while one must clearly be false. Eventually, it leads to a psychotic break. America stands at that precipice. Our systems are outdated and failing. They are serving an America that is long gone, instead of effacing the one that actually exists. American girls are being told that they can be, do, and have whatever they want, that they're sexually liberated and empowered, that they can be president of the United States and run their own businesses. Yet the truth is, their civil protections on campuses are being rolled back this week. Equal pay laws designed to protect them are being rescinded whimsically by state governors. And VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, that included civil protections for us, that routinely faces funding cuts every year, was defanged by our own Supreme Court in the 90s. The bottom line is American women are, were, and always have been second-class citizens in these United States of America. If we want change, we must stop gaslighting this generation. No matter how uncomfortable, we must inform them that despite doing the majority of the labor, both inside and outside of the home, our society has always seen women as less, treated them with less respect and dignity, and exploited them and their bodies for profit at every turn. And it will always be that way until we rise up and do something about it. Unless we use our words to speak truth to power and transform the status quo of this nation. The time is now for women to use their voices and demand their due without equivocation, without apology, with full knowledge that not only is this the right thing to do, it is what must be done. We owe this to those who came before us, who fought for decades and won us the vote. We owe this to our mothers and our sisters who spent the 60s and the 70s protesting, marching, and fighting. We owe this to the girls here and the ones that are not yet born. And most importantly, we owe this to ourselves. Because the bottom line is that until we, as women, truly value ourselves, individually and collectively, no one will ever value us. I strongly believe that the ERA is the necessary first action without which all other actions will not achieve their purpose. We are 95% of the way there. We are closer than we have ever been with the ratification of March of this year of the state of Nevada. A few weeks ago on Women's Equality Day, I launched the 1 Year Equal Means Equal initiative. It is a commitment and a challenge to complete the ratification of the original Equal Rights Amendment by Women's Equality Day of next year. When we achieve this goal, when we get these last 2 states to 38, we will finally bring equal rights to American women and girls exactly 100 years after suffrage. The Equal Rights Amendment simply states, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. That's it. American women need these basic rights, and we need them now. If you haven't seen Equal Means Equal, I urge you to educate yourself. In 94 minutes, I will show you what it took me 10 years to uncover. That the dots are all connected. This discrimination is no accident, and it has a legal remedy. I invite you to join the challenge by signing up at equalmeansequal.org and getting involved. The clock is ticking. Let's get this completed once and for all. Thank you.